Too many pins. Too many pins. What in the world was I thinking? This is unbelievable. Top of the morning to you folks. Michael here. I'm trying to find some white space on my desk. I know there's some up here somewhere. What in the world? It's Monday. I got a busy day at the desk, but I also am going to paint something before the wheels came off my train today. I love this piece of music. Morning, June Jones. Glad you're on the show this morning. I'm going to pour another cup of tea and go face up live here in just a minute. Love this piece of music, huh? I want to do with my thermos. There it is. Taking me almost 20 years to get this dog to make the tea and bring it up for me. I'm just kidding. I don't have a dog. I had a dog. He was too cool. Mocha. My son's dog, actually. Look, I even have a pencil in my hand. What am I thinking? All right. Here we go. Seems like there's always more room. Blurry-eyed, me too. Linda Schleitney, thanks for being on the show today. Heather Kuhlman, thanks for being on the show today. Several people popping on here. About 34 seconds of this music left, and then I'm going to just let it tail out, and I'll pop up here, heads up. Just start with a little video and then roll on from there. Denise Albright, good morning to you, my dear friend out in California. Laurie Stanley, Handelmeyer Henderson, thanks for being on the show today. It's Monday morning somewhere. Sun's coming out. Love it, love it, love it. Here we go. Boom. Hey, top of the morning to you. Michael here. Grandkids call me Roo. Thanks for being on RoodooodlesLIVE. It is Monday, April the 24th. I slayed it like that, so if you ever wanted to find it again and go, I think it was Monday when he was talking about something that no one knew what he was talking about. Except that I have a handful of pins today, and gosh, I should have probably looked in the mirror before I came in here, huh? What does that look like? Yeah, you got some hair. It's about time for my 6-month annual, half of biannual haircut. It's about that time again. Those guys go, oh, they look at, they don't look at their calendar. They look at like a, I don't know, I started to say a sundial, but it's more than that. When I call them, they go, oh yeah, we haven't seen you in 6 months. I go, yeah. Hey, hope you're well. Donna Sell Barton, I saw you pop on the show. Mike Paramore, thanks for being on the show. Mike, I've got a couple of other calls after this show today, Mike, with some folks I'm working with, and then I'll try to put in a call to you, and let's talk about some honey and this bee project that I'm doing. Bee. I got to tell you about a bee project today. But first of all, let's just take a moment here and get to the desk. Let's see if I can do picture-in-picture. There I am. Move me over here just a little bit. Oh, that hurts. Okay, here we go. Top of the morning to you. And some Kilimanjaro light on the desk. I have become obsessed with this book. Of course, this paper, yes. And I'll need that in a minute. But I've become obsessed with this book. Abscess is probably a better way to put it. I'm infected with it. I've become obsessed with this book, and it has, again, like journaling, like small pieces of paper, like these little drawing pads, it has helped change my art style. That's all I got to say. Now you're still going to see my style reflected, but it's maybe I should have said art talent a little bit. I don't know if others think it's getting better, but I think it's getting better, and that is so important. When you start to think like an artist, and tomorrow morning after I do Good News Rue on YouTube, I'll click over to Think Like an Artist for those folks, and I'm still working through the concept of what that show's supposed to be. So just bear with me a little longer. Thank you for your support. It has been the fact that you guys for a year. 1 year now, is in April, have been a part of a small support group for me who lets me say, I need to work on this outline and this concept and this idea, and I'm cutting it into 30-minute sections. That has been really helpful for me, and I think helpful for you too, because, it's one thing when a tall, long-haired guy talks to you, but when he talks too long, you're going like, I don't remember what he said a minute ago. So, but these little books, and I'm going to just show you a couple things here very quickly today. Why do I carry these around in my coat pocket? And when it gets summer, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll have to go back to carrying my man purse because I have more bags than my wife. But this week I painted a little plow, and I got to tell you, I like it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I painted it because there's a lot of history in it for me. We had a plow like this that sat around my house. These being the handles, the braces, the beam, the clovis or the shackle. This is called the mold board. And this is called the share, and this is called the plow point. See, I knew all of that, and so I just wanted to find an old wooden plow and just use some browns and pins mostly, and just, I don't know, I'm not going to do anything with it, but sometimes when somebody talks about me, I talk about staying behind the mule, but I hadn't drawn too many plows, and I certainly am not going to draw a mule, so don't count on me to do that. But this little page lets me do the lobsters that I just kind of create. There's a honeybee that I did yesterday, sitting at a table with my wife after church, and we looked across the street to a business that had gone out of business, so a building that once housed a business, and their logo was a bee that we both were convinced the reason it went out of business, it wasn't a bee at all, it was a wasp. Like, why would you want to draw a wasp as your logo? I mean, everybody knows it. They'll come at your face and sting the stew out of you. So we went, that's not a bee, is it? We go, no, that doesn't even look like a bee. And so they should have had this. And so anyway, I'm liking this bee here. He's not numbered, but I know what his number is. I've shipped out a couple bees this weekend, but he's going to get his number and his comment today. And you know what? I'm just going to tell you right now, people. He may be one of my best bees, and he just happened out of this little pallet yesterday, and 2 pins at the table, and it was just that simple. Boom. That pen and the one in my pocket, which of course has the refill in it of one of these, the 05 Pentel needlepoint. And the reason these pins are still out here today is because I dumped my pockets, and I had, oh my gosh, I had 6 of them in church. But it was a good thing because this one just quit right in the middle of my note taking in church. And I do take notes in church. I sit down front, so I try not to interrupt anybody else. I don't want to be in the middle where people are looking over. So there's a little aisle seat that kind of steps out there. Carol, I sit here, and I can bring my cup of coffee into church. I do take about a half a cup of coffee in and set it right in the corner of my little pew there. I don't know why they call it pew. Who'd want to sit in pew? But anyway, I take notes, and something happened yesterday while I was taking notes in church. Let's see if I have it up here. Shucks, I hope I do. Rats. I'm going to be disappointed if I don't have that up here. A young man got up at the end of the service who was sitting about 4 seats over, and he knows I doodle in church. And I don't doodle just to doodle, to keep myself awake. I doodle, well, rats. I doodle to remind me of the sermon, and it's just how my brain works. And I'll have to find it in a minute, but he gave me a painting yesterday, and he came over and he handed it to me, and I'm so disappointed because I wanted to show you. It's a little honeybee. It's on a ripped piece of card. Well, rats. I'll find it later. It'll show up somewhere here. And it was the funniest little thing I'd ever seen. And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Hahn." I said, "Roo's fine." He goes, "Okay, Mr. Hahn, I painted you a bee this morning in church." And I said, "Wow, thank you for painting me a bee in church." And he said, "1 in a billion, B-E-E-L." And I went, "Oh my gosh, this is just too funny." And it made me laugh, and I said, "Can I keep this?" And he said, "Yes, you can." And now I have to find him next week and have him sign it, because once again, Denise, it got away from me. And so I am so sorry that I shipped some bees out to you and I didn't sign them. That's just like the epitome of poor artistry. Yes, I want people's names on the art that I have. It wasn't this bee. All right, I feel really bad that I lost my bee. He'll pop up here in a minute and I'll show him to you. He's probably in one of these books. All right, that's okay. But I want to tell you about this. So when I sketch in church, I sketch in let me tell you what the book is. So if some of you ever want this, it's made by Strathmore, which, by the way, I don't normally do watercolor paintings on Strathmore, but it's good paper. It's 140 pound. It's good paper. In the front of this one, I always generally write a date, but I always start, I leave a blank page just in case, and then I flip over. So this one I started on November 6, 2022. So you can see how long. There are 48 sheets in here. So if I only do a sketch a Sunday, you can see how long this will last. And so I just sit and I start going through just my little ideas of notes of what the Sunday sermon is about. Now, I don't do this for anybody except that starting about 7 or 8 weeks ago, I got a call from the folks at the church who said, actually it started in February, who said, "Hey, we're doing a series and we saw a little piece of your note that you sent the pastor. Just clipped this little piece out. This shoe stuck in the mud." Stuck in the mud. That'd be a great title for a sermon, wouldn't it? I'm stuck in the mud. And it was this little sermon idea, and they said, could we use that for a little piece online and put his notes with it so that the sermon would go out online? I said, "Most certainly, please." And they said, "Well, would you like to do another one?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What's the sermon about?" And so the next week they said, "Well, it's about joy, that when troubles crowd into your lives, welcome them as friends." I'm going like, "Oh, that's a scripture from James. That is one hard thing to remember." Anyway, so I painted this little thing here where this anvil is falling on these people, and it says joyful. And so they used it. And so now then they did one on knowledge, and then they did one where just like life, it all fades away. And so now I'm painting one sort of every day as I go through. And this one was in a dark service with a flare pen. The one I painted yesterday was about keeping score, and it's right here. And it was a little faded pen. And so anyway, that's a fun thing to do. So I know he saw me sketching, and he knows that I paint bees, and so that's kind of how that. But this is pretty good watercolor paper. It's difficult if you want to get your paintings out of here. And so what I did was I just painted on a piece of this, and then I ripped it off. And the piece that they used was the piece that I ripped off. And I don't think I have it up here either. I'm such a bad host of a show. So I carry this with me in church, and I carry one of my little Pentel water brushes in church, and I carry this pen. This is the one that ran out of ink yesterday, but I had another one in my pocket. And apparently I had more than one in my pocket. There seems to be one missing here. But I want to show you a pen that I bought a long time ago, maybe over a year ago. And I don't think that I said much about it because it may be the messiest pen I've ever owned. And I don't know if I'm still happy with it yet. It actually doesn't have cartridges that go in it, which I'm a cartridge fan because they lack mess. A lot of the folks that I painted with at the Water Media Workshop, they would grab a pen like this, and I'll show you how this one works. This one has a little fill plunger on the end here. So you dip it in the ink, and then you push the plunger down, and then you pull up the little suction pin, like a syringe, you know, that you're going to give a shot with. And it sucks the ink up in here. But I had to go wash my hands 6 times yesterday before I got all the ink. There's some already. So it's a dripping, messy little pen. It's called the Noodler. Noodlers, Noodlers, Noodlers ink. And the ink you use is Noodlers ink. It comes in this little box right here. Noodlers ink. And you have to dip your pen in there, and so it's a split nib. Can you see that? Can you see that splitting out a little bit? I don't think you can, but let's see if this will focus here. 1 second. There's just that stuff you tune in to go like, I'm going to do this for you so you realize, what am I looking for? You see those 2 little, no, you can't. See those 2 little lines there? Here's one line. Look, if I press down that hard, I get these 2. I don't know why you don't want to do that, but it got a little calligraphy point. By the way, this ink dries a lot faster than I want it to dry. So those of you who don't like pens that bleed, this might be some good ink for you if you have one. There's my little bee coming in right here. His legs coming down. I'm going to show you how fast this dries. Watch this. Just in the time it takes me to put the antennae. And Mike Paramore, double check me here, but I believe you'll find that when the bee goes into the flower, he's got these little pockets on the side of his back legs that can carry pollen. He fills them up, and then they just sort of start gluing it on the side. I mean, it sort of glues itself on there. But I thought maybe he took his front legs and scraped it out, and maybe he does. But now I'm hearing that sometimes his antennae can actually grab that looseness, and they have the reach back here to drop it in. Pretty amazing, isn't it? So I want to show you this right here. I'm going to grab a little bit of a wet brush and come in. And like I said, see, it's bleeding like crazy, and I just made a liar out of me because it's on this kind of paper. On watercolor paper, it dries so fast, but that gives you an idea of the color of this pen. And so it's maybe one of the messier fountain pens that I've ever worked with. So I'm going to stay with my, I don't have anything against the company. I just, in fact, I bought this at Cheap Joe's. And I don't even know if they still sell them, but it's a big old pen too. You got to feel like, wow, it's not heavy. It's just big around. And I got big hands, but still, it's kind of a hard pen to use. I've tried using it in my book a couple times. I still have my Safari pen here, which is what we call the Lamy or Llama, like Mama, Lamy. But Lamy pen, and this is the Safari model. I still like this pen, but I really do like my Pilots better. The Kakuno and all the Metrolina, which is not laying up here. And I've noticed this week that I have sketched so much out of a number 3 Preppy pen. So I'm telling you all this because before you go spend a lot of money, just buy. This is a very inexpensive pen. This pen is like $5. This pen is like $15. $15 for a fountain pen that I've had over 2 years. That is good money. Figure it out. This one still works great. It's an 03 Preppy pen, so it's a little fuller than it says fine on there, but that's a long way from fine when you put the line down. So those are some of the pens that I have laying on my desk, and I've used them to paint in this book, and I want to show you how this has changed my art. So let me say hi to a few more people. Dorothy Beasley, welcome to the show. Gene Anthalzer, Sharon Caldwell, Mary Quayle, Laura Logan received the R2 pens from Amazon. Very nice. Love the bleed. 12 pens for $11. So Laura Logan has ordered the R2s, and here they are. And I used this R2 rollerball. So it wasn't that I said never, never. I said, don't let any art instructor ever tell you, never get this. Like this doodler pen. Maybe you love it. Sometimes you have these extra tools to reach that one. You know, it's like having that wrench that just fits the one little valve underneath your sink that you got to have sometimes. You just have to say, I have to have special wrench number 51. And I've called it that for years. If I send my boys out, I go, hey, I need special tool number 51. They'll go, okay. So they carry back something that we know. Really, in most cases for mine, it was a big long chisel that we just went, knocked the hole out from. So Amazon, if you just look for R2 pens, this is a roller ball. They make it 05, they make it 07, and this is the 07. I've used it a couple times in this book. We had a plow like that. Wow, and so did we. Miss him bunches. Awesome. I love those memories of where you see that old plow. Thank you, Sharon, for saying that's a beautiful bee. Good morning, peeps, from Mickey DeYoung. Thank you for being on the show. Catherine Brousseau. I scrolled and read about the condition of the book. Free shipping caught my eye. Love it, love it, love it. Trina LaFrance. Hey, Trina, good to hear from you. It's been a long time. Hope you're doing well. I use Noodler's Lexington Gray, made in USA. Yeah, that's, I don't know if this is the Lexington pen or not, but here we go. James Wade Jr., thanks for being on the show. And Chris Chipfer, I've seen this book close up. Amazing. Why do you find it harder to paint over words than a blank page? What a great question, Chip. No, I find it actually exhilarating because I think it causes me to think outside the box again. And that's where I'm going to go this morning a little bit. So I want to show you what I painted differently. I started out thinking that I'd fill this with ruse, almost like I did in the book of words. Remember when we did that whole book of words? Why did I do that exercise? It pushes me as an artist, using a limited amount of tools, not everything in my arsenal, not all these pens, but just traveling with 2 or 3. I saw a great quote this morning. Let's see if I marked it. Oh, maybe that's where my B is. Maybe I marked it with the B. Ah, I did. So this young man hands me this B. Look, here it is. I'm one in a billion. A billion, he said. Billion. I'm one in a billion. He hands this to me, and I said, Jackson, are you hungry? I mean, it's like 10 after 12. It's kind of lunchtime for us. We've been sitting here in church. And he goes, no, why would you say that? And I said, because this bee looks like an ice cream cone. And he laughs, and he said, yeah, I don't know, Mr. Hahn, I don't know how to draw legs. And I guess, don't worry, I still don't draw animals with 4 legs. Those aren't really legs on bees. They're just like implements that hang out there. They call them legs and lobsters, but they're just skinny little things that I do. And I can show you how to draw those someday. And he goes, would you? And I go, yeah, we'll have coffee again. We've had coffee once. But so he draws me this bee, and I've got to get him to sign it. I love it. It's going over here on my wall. And I love that he drew the little eyes right here and the little markings. You know, he's got his little ballpoint pen out right there, and he's just like, I'm drawing a bee for this guy. And he just ripped it off a piece of something out of the back of the pew. Don't you love that when that happens? Limitations. Find a piece of paper, got a pen. Limitations. Limitations are really good for you. They are stimulant. If you were told to make a drawing of a tulip using 5 lines and one using 100 lines, you'd be more inventive with the 5. Think about that. David Hockney wrote that. This is a book called Art is the Highest Form of Hope. I don't necessarily agree with that quote right there on the front. And by the way, I bought this used for $5 or $6. I think it's like $35 at a bookstore. And I bought a used copy of it. I want you to know, if you're going to buy the book, you probably won't read it but once. There's some words in here that you won't want to share with your grandkids. It's just how people talk. So just be aware. I'm telling you that now. There's nothing about materials. Art is my capital. So gravitation is the only logical factor a sculptor has to contend with. You know, they're just all kinds of just quotes. But I love that fact on limited. So I've sort of limited myself to some tools. And I thought at first I was going to limit myself to painting roosters in here. You know, so like here's Durham American Painters. And here's the rooster. I took this to have coffee with my friend Chip the other day, and I wanted him to see what I'd done with this. There's a good name, Pew Art. I like it. So I started this book on March 2023 before I went to the media workshops, and I wanted to take it, and I was going to tear pages out of it, and then I fell in love with the book. And now what it's done, I started with chickens. Here's one right here about making sure we have health in our art. You can see it's going to be a blue hen with a little peep, stethoscope. Take care of your artists. If you have artists in your family, take care of them. I did a story in the front. I did this story. Some of you, I'm not going to bore you with this whole thing again, but this was what I thought Grant Wood's little Iowa farm looked like. So there's his Iowa farm. But I want to show you what I've been doing here. By the way, there's a few pictures in here that you would want to turn fast on your grandkids too. But let me show you what I've done since I saw you last. I think you saw the riverboat that I did. It's here. And then there was a mention in here of the Impressionism of Monet. So I read these sections, and then what pops to me, I just go, well, this one has to be rooster form. So I thought I was going to start with all roosters, and now I'm not. I'm leaning into other things, and it's pushing my skills. So for me, that R2 pen and that heavy fountain pen were what I used to just scratch this in. I didn't sketch it. I just started like this. Then I put the rollers on the back here, the paddle wheels, and then I just started building this steamboat, kind of this perspective going down river. And then this was really not the steering wheel. You know, they had the big wheels with the look like a rolling pins on the end. This was more of the Pitnam arm wheel. I'm into Rube Goldberg, which I got to do a Rube Goldberg painting later today. So I kind of went into this thing. This was a takeoff from my journal in Paris when we walked through Monet's garden and we came around the corner and back up toward the house on the other side of the road. His water lily garden is down off to the left. When you come back across that road and come up by the house, there were 2 chickens in the yard, and they were giving themselves a dust bath. If you've ever been out on the farm, you know, chickens will lay down and just help mites and other insects that get on chickens. Chickens are not the cleanest thing in the world. We just eat a lot of them. Figure that out. But they were just flipping the dust everywhere. And so they were in Monet's garden and they were kicking up dust. And my thought on that is artists need to continue to kick up dust. And so maybe that's why it fits in the agrarian culture for me so much. It's so connected to the dirt, the earth. It's just, you know, paint comes from just those sort of things. This was a bee that I did in here, and this was about Eastman Johnson. So I'm finding these choice little pieces. This has become, I want you guys to hear this. This become a little bit of I'm a self-trained artist, or self-taught. I'm not really trained. And sometimes I'm not self-taught. This has become my art education. And so I kept the book intact, but I'm painting over it. So for me, painting over these words, as you would say about the paper, gives it some tooth. It just gives it some meat that I can hold to. And it recalls what journaling recalls for me. It recalls this idea exactly. When I see this immediately, without even looking and just reading this once, I think of, ready for this? I think of bee husking or husking bees. What is a quilting bee? That's where everybody gets together and they bring their own, maybe they don't bring their own needles because you need probably a number 7 or a number 9 quilting needle, which is a short little sharp needle, and you need your own cotton thread to go through the batting and long enough. But people come together. That's the bee the BEE, the quilting bee. A husking bee is where people would show up on the farm and they would either husk seed corn or they would, and usually it was seed corn because you didn't want everybody just, you know, messing around with your feed corn, the corn that you were going to eat for your family. That's a small portion, but they would have these husking bees. And so Eastman Johnson painted American scenes. Eastman Johnson, look him up. By the way, he was the co-founder of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Now we're talking about an American artist that I had never really dug into his past before. So I thought, oh, I'm going to paint not a husking bee, but a husky bee. So see, I'll still take my play on a pun on the words. So I just painted this big bee. And this one, of course, was from William Morris Hunt. And I showed some of you this one the other day. This was John Lafarge, who was an ecclesiastical painter. Okay, I love that so much that I thought, you know what? I think I am sometimes an ecclesiastical painter. So here is the Easter story in just sketches that I thought, here's how my brain works. 3 weeks before this, I thought this would make a good stained glass window. And I'm thinking, you're crazy. But then my wife used to do stained glass, and I used to help cut and wrap it in foil and copper foil and do the lead came, and I'm thinking, that'd be fun. And so then I'm reading this book, and I see John Lafarge was an ecclesiastical painter noted for his work in stained glass in the Trinity Church in Boston and St. Thomas Church in New York. And I went, oh, and so I looked up one of his paintings, and there was a dove flying through like this. So I just sketched it, just looking at the picture. I just went, hey, it looks like this. I'm close enough. That's close to what I see. So this is what this has been a fun thing for me to do. That's how I pursue this. So what's it doing to my art? It's changing my style a little bit. I'm still going to have Roodoodle style. You're still going to have the hand, the head, the heart that God gave you with, and you're still going to put it together like this. If Donna Buckley were going to try to get rid of Payne's Gray out of her palette today, she just couldn't do it. If Chris Whitaker were to try and paint a gnome in a different way, she'd have a hard time doing it. He's still going to have that style, that I call him the Okoyono John Lennon look. He's still going to look a little 60s out of the hippie clown to me. And that's a compliment, by the way. That's not a slam. If Denise were going to paint the eyes in her crows or her birds or her dogs, they were still going to have that little bright eye with a speck of yellow. Some of you, I could say that. Cindy, I could see your portrait still have a little of that pastel watercolor look. It's crazy. So I see your work. Tom up in Boston he inspires me all the time. This week he painted a seagull, and I thought, oh my gosh, as many times as I've talked about red skeleton, I hadn't painted a seagull. And so I looked at the seagull and I went, blah, 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 blah. I could paint that. And then Tom and I send a note back and forth. So that's what happens in my world of art. But I want to show you something else that I painted with. This was the one that started it all. Here's the boat. Let's see. Cubism, I did that one. Oh, this one, here's one you haven't seen. It basically says here, America will not be. American artists, what are they going to do? And someone says, here's what they will not be. American artists will not be like a pack of rats or like a pack rat that sits on a pile of collected art of the past. So push yourself a little bit. To have art in America will not be to sit like a pack rat on a pile of collected past. It will be rather to build on your own projection on art of the past, but in constructive and a new means, and go hand in hand. Connect with art. Tell the story. So for me, I painted all these little frames that had been painted, and then I painted a rat. First time I've ever painted a rat. I just went, a rat looks like this. Got this little beak nose, he comes out, and then he's painted a piece of cheese. And so there's my paint. Oh, you can't see it from my big old head. Here you go. There it is right there. So there's my painting from the rat on the cheese. And then this is limitable experiences. This is jousting. I had another one, cubism. This is a self-portrait that I'm working on. Yep, there it is right there. This is painting a nude. Yeah, well, you had to. This is the book. This one I want to show you. This is my journaling here. Take a look at this. I haven't finished this yet. So painting over these words is forcing me to see what I need to color up and what I don't. And sometimes I'll find a word inside of one of these little pages that I want to highlight. This may be the first time I've ever painted a poppy. Art needs both taste and force. Here's the quote. Ready for this? One painter phrased it this way: the pansy and the gorilla are both necessary in any work of art. One to lend taste, the other to supply force. And so there is my painting from yesterday morning as I sat down early. There's the pansy, and I thought I'd paint one of these this morning, and then a gorilla. And I'll probably never paint another gorilla. Don't have to, but it pushed me a little bit to say, what does a gorilla look like in Roodoodle style? And I think this might be it. And he's a little bit of a silverback. Can you see that right there? I'll probably darken this fanny right here a little bit. I'll do that with a fountain pen. I'll come in here right here and I'll just drop in some little bit of water and some cross hatching with my fountain pen right here. Why would I want to darken that? Well, that's the kind of, his bottom's pushed back into this brush here. And I'm going to darken this piece of shoulder right here. And this little arm coming down like this with his hand curled around like this, big old fist like so, muscles, there's part of his chest coming in, You know, I mean, strong rascal. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab a little brush and water. Let's see if I grab this little brush here. And I'm going to take this pen and let it bleed in like that. Look at that right there. See that? Now what I just did by negative painting, look at that. I've created a little more of that white silver back on this gorilla. And that's the only gorilla that I'm familiar with in the wild, because when we were in Africa, they were in the area where my son was for a year in Beni Congo up in the mountains there. And so there's a little bit of that concept of that negative painting to show what you can do. There you go. Looks a little better, doesn't he? All right. But look at this painting right here. This is the one that I wanted to, let's see if I can look. I'm going to close it. Well, I can't close it. I'll lay it down here. All right. I'm not sure I painted anything else yet I want to show you on that. But let's just grab a piece of watercolor paper here and do that. And we'll do it with this roller ball just to show you that I'm going to be different today. This is the 02, excuse me, this is the 07 R2 50 cent. Now they're 75 cents. If you bought 12 of them for $11, that probably included shipping. This would also be a good pen for this. This is the Pilot Razor. This is the flare pen from the 70s. That one's pretty shaken up. Let's see if I can find one that's kind of dark here. Put a little music on, I'll paint something here. Ooh, that one's better. Let's try this one here. Oh, I love that one. Okay. All right. These things wear out after a while, after 20 years. All right, and I got a couple fountain pens up here. So here's what we're going to start with. And one brush, and let me see, I'm going to look at that and go, starts with a little bulb right here in the middle. We'll start it with this pen right here, just a little bulb right here like this, and maybe out, and then go down. And then I think it's, it looks like it's coming around this way here. It's got its like tongue open here, and then bring in this one here. Got a lobe here. There's a big lobe up here, kind of comes down, a little line in it like this, and then one here. So this one could come out a little farther, but that's kind of the pansy that I'm going to be drawing today. I think a little bit like that. Let's put that way in there. All right, so there it is. I don't do flowers. Have you noticed? Okay, so anyway, I'm going to come in with this pen right here. This is that 07 ballpoint, and bring it in, and then I'm just going to kind of get messy here with this. I like to just create a little bit of a mess here. And then let's do some water on water. Here we go. If you don't have a bamboo brush, I'm gonna paint this with a number 6 American Journey nylon, interlock nylon. Here we go. Let's see. I'm looking at that to see how it works. What I want to do is I want to come around here. Look at that pen bleed. And I'm just going to drip a little bit of yellow, and this paint has not been wet yet, so I'm just going to drip a little bit in here, come around the edge, and just do this yellow wash just around the edge like this. Like that. Here's why I did that. Because now I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to grab some amethyst, royal amethyst, and I'm going to bring it in dark, and I'm just going to let it run into the yellow like so it bleeds over it. This is how fast this should be. Now everything else is sort of going to go this violet color, so I'm going to grab some here, dark in the middle, and then let my dry brush push some of this to the outside. Let's paint a gorilla. My wife has made some amazing stained glass windows, by the way. Yeah, she did. She helped the school do an entire wall at the school when we lived in Florida, and it was superb. They had, I think, 7 women who came in, and she had quite a bit of experience. And we still have all her tools here, and she's done a couple Tiffany style. There's not much that she can't do in the art world. You know, she just tends to use that in cooking right now with a lot of the young women that she's teaching to cook and how to host people in their house. Today gets crazy. I've got some phone calls today, and we're setting up for tomorrow. She's doing a high tea for me at 2. And so what that tea involves is about a dozen people coming to my house, and I'm working with them on media. How to shoot, how to put some things together that might help them. You see how I backed off on some of those colors and just let it, the white come in? I could even go in here and get a little of this Payne's Gray if I wanted to just put a couple touches of that in there. Flowers and things like that, everything's not just one color, okay? Just remember that as you go to we teach kids that everything has to be, the whole tree has to be completely green, no white space at all, and then put red apples on it. And that's not true. You can look through trees. You look through them all the time. I don't know why we do that. I think it's because it's just easier than really instructing them. And I also think that they're being taught by people like me who go, hey, it's taken me all my life to figure out what art is. I like that music though, huh? It's kind of fun to hear. All right, so there's I'm going to put some pin in there. Watch this in just a second. Stained glass is fun. It is fun. I love it. But it is rough on your fingers, especially, and it's kind of dangerous when you're working with a lot of lead solder. I don't think I want a hero Christmas tree. What do you say? I'm going to come in with this pen, and I'm just going to drop some of this down in there like this. Now I'm going to go back and treat a little of this yellow just with a little force around the edge. Look, I'm just dropping a wet brush, and notice I'm painting sporadically here like the rain falls. I'm not trying to brush carefully in the box. Stop worrying about so carefully sometimes and just let watercolor be watercolor, people. I don't know how to tell you that other than just what I told you. Jack Wolfenbarger, thanks for being on the show today. I just saw your name slide by there. Pray you're well, my friend. Jack and I grew up together, running around on a farm he lived on up in East Tennessee. We tried to stay out of trouble. We did pretty well at it, actually. Staying out of trouble. Good friend. Oh, look at that, huh? You see, this is what I'm chasing right here. Let me move in on this so you can see it. Hold on, let me turn this down just a minute. Let me zoom in on this flower just a little bit right here and take a look at this. Let me get my pen out here. Let me get my pointer. Look right here. You see this right here at the end of this little white pointer? You see where this purple, this royal amethyst, that's the color royal amethyst. You see where that's walking into this yellow? Now that's why I put the yellow in first. I wet the paper, a little water on there first, and then I went in and I just did a small little circle of yellow. Now, who's to say if I have yellow running into the purple or purple running into the yellow? But I'm assuming that since I put the dark color on last, it's coming closer. So it's running down into the yellow. And this is the look that I wanted for. I wanted. This is what I was looking for. I wanted these lines to break into the yellow. Find the little tributaries that go down in there. I didn't, and I have the same right here, if you can see this. Here's where the darker color that I put on last is going in there. There's something that bothers me here, and I'm going to have to change it right now. This looks a little bit like an eyelash, and I don't want the flower to be, I'm not painting a Disney flower here. I don't want the flower to be looking at me, okay? Come in with this here. Come back in here with a little bit, and I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to put some a little bit of just feel in this leaf, and I'm going to go in with a little darker green. I just want a little more green to come in here on these, underneath this leaf right here on this side, and then maybe on the back side of this. And then would be a fun thing to do. I could come in with some blue here and just come back in here and come in and just start boxing this in a little bit. And is it going to run in together with the green? Sure. Do I care? No, I don't. Why not? because it's just a simple piece of art, and I just want this to happen in here just like this. So I could have waited until it dried, but then you would have been long gone because we only have a little bit of the show left. And so I'm just going to come out here and just let this just feather on out to the outside, and we'll come back in and just do a little bit right down in here like so. Now look, I'm dragging this brush almost like I'm painting because I did want to fill up a tight spot. Excuse me. All right, still coughing, and still got the cracking. The cracking. That's the new variant of COVID, when you just cough and sputter and spit, and you don't have to take anything. You go to the doctor and they go, just go home and rest. And you go like, I've been resting for 15 years. What am I supposed to do now? All right, so there we go. There's a little bit of this son of a gun. Have I painted my first pansy by itself? I just hit that and it's running to the outside. Look at that take off. I'm going to have to go stop that a little bit. Let me stop this break here. That'd be a great place for a bee to approach. There we go. And just take this up here and continue to feather this out, and then just jump up here. I don't want to do the whole thing. Of course not. That'd be way too simple and way past my style if I went up there and got the whole thing. But I want to grab a little more green, and I'm just going to come back down over that. Just let it just fall back in. I'm not even going to take all that white out of there. We'll come back in with a pen here. Should be careful how you make your marks. Thanks, June Jones. Appreciate your comment. All right, so let me see if there's any more questions this morning here. I got a couple questions coming in. I think I answered Chip's. Received the R2 pens, seen this book up close, amazing. Thank you, Chip. And I think I answered you. I love painting over the words because it means that I have to go in and go, here's what I've found. I've shown it to several people. Just to kind of take a look at it and see what they think. And you know what? They all do the same thing. They all look at it and you can see the drawing like out there. And then they go in a little closer. And then they see the drawing a little closer, but then some of the words will kind of get in the way. And then they'll see some of the words and they'll go, oh, wait a minute, these words, this painting is about these words. And I go, yeah, this has to connect. And this is my art education. It's crazy what it's doing to my brain about art, and how I missed so much about art because I didn't have it in the little school that I was in East Tennessee. And so I'm not blaming them. They had all they could do. And so I do love that concept that you get to learn later in life when you really feel like learning, you know? Like kids right now, they're not interested in learning. I'm not sure what they're interested in right now. Each other and trying to figure out where life is. So art is a great way to teach that. This is stuff right here that you cannot paint. This is stuff that just has to happen. This is where water and a dry brush or a damp brush that's a clean damp brush dragging the purple up there, the amethyst up there, just stops. This is where this fumato happens, that atmospheric blend of where the purple goes into the blue, and that bothers some of you terribly. I love it because it happens. This pansy is huge pansy is crying for a big old ladybug or a bee, and so in that case I'm going to have to wait. This, by the way, is painted on, as he looks at it, Artistico paper, which was a sample piece of paper, 140-pound sample piece of paper, medium rough, that I got at the workshop. And they just laid some papers out and said, hey, some art people always come through here with their wares. This was an artist sample. And so that's how I wound up with that piece of paper. But I like this big old pansy. There you go. Morning. Wow, a pansy. Yeah, I painted a pansy. They're great winter flowers, but they kind of get pulled up, but they're tough. And so I think there's a dichotomy in my book that I was looking at in this anyway, that the man sorry, I just turned myself over. The man who said this quote, here it is, coming back to you right here. The man who said this quote, they didn't identify him, and I'm so sad. There was a couple guys around. There was Andre, there was Benton, there was, let's see, who else was here? Doris Lee. There were several painters that had come together in this organized group that was helping American art back then. They called it the Ashcan School, mostly because they were the down in the street, put the brush in your teeth and go find whatever utensils, tools you could find and make art, and not think you had to go to Paris to make art. You just didn't have to. And so that's what they were pushing American artists to back then. They were called the Group of Eight. For me now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and you see where I blanked out a little bit of the writing on this page, just so I said, carry a journal, okay, and paint what you see. This is so important to me. It would be important to you if you want to see your art change some. So for me, this is where this is going. So art needs taste, and sometimes it needs force. So this is a big old pansy that I painted. Now, where I'm going here is some that I've roughed out that I'll do, maybe tonight. Maybe I'll pull this thing out of the woodwork and do it again. Good art tells an emotional story. And so what they said is that paint was their weapon, these artists who are starting in America. This was the start of, in 1938 was when this was written. These are the start of some of the best painters in America who said, we're not against Europe. Most of our grandparents came from there. There's a strong painting in here that says this. Here it is right here. Just turn to it. Basically, it says, America is not a race. It's a people. It's a group of people who've come together. And so that's the one on the Statue of Liberty when I painted that we all came in somewhere to this country. And so we have to forget that, hey, nobody's invading on our country. We all stand on the shoulders of someone. And this was the colonial limers that came in here, And so that's kind of where this thing's going. This was Washington crossing the Delaware. But for me, I see art as emotional story, and that's our weapon. Paint is my weapon. To what? To tell stories that I'm free to depict anything I want, but just to hurt people? No. To destroy other people? No, but to build people up for me. And that's why it's an emotional story. But I did paint a brush inside a mortar that looks like it's being fired out like a rocket. So I think there's more to this story. So I can show, I can draw, I can sketch, I can illustrate as I load up my brushes. And so I think about that. These shots of art did little really to move the masses. So what do we need? Well, we need pure art, and we need art that balances. And so why would I paint a scale? They didn't use the word balance. I use the word balance based on one word, Toledo. See, one word made this happen, Toledo. Why? Well, Toledo scales. The scales that we use, that were marketed at the time, were made in Toledo, Ohio. So I said, weigh it out. And so that's where the art was coming into. So that's as far as I've gotten so far in this book. And, well, no, there's another painting over here of where the government started once again stepping in and putting a branch together in the Treasury Department for a quota and a cost of art on federal buildings. And you're going like, okay, get out of our art. We don't need you in here. Today, the American people want an art that is their own art. So that's just the first sentence that I've highlighted so far. I'm loving this book, by the way. And here's one that I just did here. First time I saw an Edward Hopper painting, I was in California at the Pageant of the Masters. And they did this diner scene, and his greens and yellows were just so rich and beautiful. And I went, who is Edward Hopper, and why have I not heard of him before? So as I'm reading this, the solitary quiet of a Sunday, when a man has declared truce with his environment. Oh my gosh. I sit down in the chair yesterday, and Carol and I said to each other, she said to me first, it's a California day. So for those of you visiting from the West Coast, It's 72 degrees. There's a light breeze blowing. There's not a cloud in the sky. And I said, or it could be a Ponte Vedra Beach day. We lived there for 12 years. It was 72 degrees. It was always 10 degrees hotter in Jacksonville. There we were. But Edward Hopper painted these environments around him, and he went through a whole lighthouse study. Absolutely remarkable lighthouse study. I forgot to turn my email off. It just popped over my screen. And so what came to my mind was a painting of the Portland headlight. And so there it is in Portland, Maine, the headlight. This lighthouse was commissioned by George Washington in, did I write it down? 1890. And completed in 1791 by George Washington. Commissioned in 1790. Commissioned 1 year they built this lighthouse. It's still been in use all this time. It's phenomenal to be a part of this and see this. So here's where I blanked out some of the words in the lighthouse, and I left Edward Hopper and lighthouses highlighted here in the yellow ground that Hopper put so much in his paintings. So there's little pieces of these artists in here. So that's kind of how I've done this book. So I know, I hope it got dry before I closed it. It's been really fun for me to branch out and do that. And it's pushed my art with not as many tools as I have here. Mike Paramore says, love painting lighthouses. Yeah, they're pretty amazing. Laura Abbott says, I'm here, been listening and watching, did a little search, got 2 different pansies picked out. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Denise says, our weather, yeah, spring is a great time of year there. And so I love you guys are following along here like this. Appreciate you using your art and your gift to tell a story. That's so important. And I'm just saying, at my age now, I'm dwelling on the stories that I want to tell. That's why I sketch in church on Sundays and share pieces. That's why I share art. My painting yesterday sold. You got to love this. This is a score. This is an artist talking about, I'm not saying I sold an expensive painting. I'm saying I always auction off my art starting at $8.57. And yesterday, the wonky piece of art I did, art is art that's about art. The pen and ink demo piece sold for $8.57. I go, yes. And it cost me $5 to mail it. So I'm going like, okay, today I'm going to run down to QT, which is the little market. I'm going to have a hot dog for $1 and a drink. You guys bought me a hot dog today. So when Pat and I talk about noodle, doodle, fiddle, piddle, we are, that's what doing a book is like. I say, Pat, it's been a year. I'll send you a check and you can take Peter out for a hot dog. But I've been so busy, I hadn't had time to work on books. So I've got to get out of here a little early. Got a phone call to take this morning from some folks about painting roosters again. If you remember a few months ago, I went down to Woodstock, Georgia, and painted some roosters on the wall of a restaurant. And those are then I brought them, sent them the high-res paintings. We didn't paint them directly on the wall because I wanted them to be able to move them around and place them like they needed to, kind of help design that concept. Those guys are calling me today out of Cincinnati this morning, and we're going to go, or I'm going to send some paintings to Atlanta for another start of a restaurant they're doing there on something else. So I think I'll probably get into a little bit of a Rube Goldberg, and so who knows where Roodoodles will wind up. So to me, headed home. And there's a little bee headed home. I'll probably put a bee or a ladybug in this painting and throw it out there for somebody to have a little original poppy. I think this is the one, counting the one in the book, this is my second one. And I'll probably stop there. 2's enough for me. All right. I may teach some people how to do it, but I love what's happening here. And I'll finish 1 minute by just taking this little pen and coming in here and just putting in some little tasty pieces of color, pistils, and all kinds of little stuff that come down into this. This is a tough little flower. I just think it's always ironic because they can make it through the winter, and they're called pansies. I just never understood that. Who named this flower anyway? Okay, all right. Probably has to do something with the face of it. I don't know. But I love these tributaries that run out right here. One last look at that just so you can see how that looks. See where that's coming out right there? That is too cool. That's just too cool. For me, that's the most impressive thing that watercolor does. It just is, and it's water causes that. This is the little tributaries of the creeks, the oceans. It's what it looks like on the fine print of maps when you look up the riverways. Man, no wonder people are drawn to water. My wife in particular. That woman loves water. Sometimes I like showering. That's about it. Okay. All right. I'm going to sign this before I forget right now. And I'm going to paint a little ladybug. That's my ladybug, my first grandchild. I'm going to paint a ladybug right there. All right. So there we go. I think I'm out of here like a herd of turtles. Blessings to be with you. You can't paint it. It just has to happen, right? Beautiful flower. Thanks for today. Yes, but a really good hot dog can make your day. Simple things that make you happy. It's turtle time. You guessed it. Hey, thanks for being on the show today. I'll see some of you in the morning at Good News Roo. That's on YouTube. It's called Good News Roo at YouTube. We're painting through the Gospel of John. Something that's important to me in my own life. And thank you for some of you who are joining me. And then also, oh yeah, I need to share my charcuterie board with my tea party. And I never sent you guys a photo of that either, did I? Man, it was off the chain. The 958. I don't think I can pull this up here, but let's see if I can pull up one picture of this charcuterie board. Look at this photo. Can you see this photo right there? Holy schmoly, look at that. That is a serious charcuterie board right there. Yeah. Down in front here, you see all these roll up. This is these are different salamis and turkey rolls, cheese on the inside. These peppers were all sliced up later. We sliced the apple. There's two apples here. There's a golden delicious and there's a honey crisp. These apple slices went with the cheese, and then in this darker right here, this is fig jam. And Mike, there's some honey there too, but you can drop that little fig jam on top of that cheese, on top of that slice of apple. And these men are going like, I said, hey, you guys just take a picture of this and send it to your wives because they're not here tonight and you're getting to eat out of this. I also put out ham cheese sandwiches and meatballs in a barbecue grape sauce. And so those kept them, there's some Boursin cheese right there. There's some homemade pimento cheese. This is hummus. You got it. This is smoked Gouda, smoked cheddar, Jarlsberg. This is New York cheddar. There you go. That's it right there. Take a look. Woo-hoo-hoo. Makes me hungry. I got to go have some breakfast and take a phone call. Blessings to you all, and I'm out of here.